a huge testimony for the Jewish people, and it's fairly well known.
Certified as king, but is allowed to reign. Then our If the New Testament was written by eyewitnesses and is not a fabrication from later imposters, then they should be able to get most of their facts right about that time period. In other words, in telling of the history and ministry of Jesus and the apostles, the authors should be able to paint Jesus in the correct culture, region, and with other historical figures. So they should get the names of towns, rulers, cultural aspects, geography, and customs correct. Like, for example, if someone from the year 3000 discovered a book about the history of our time, to know whether it was written by an authentic eyewitness of this culture and not an imposter from a few centuries later, the author should be able to get several facts right. Like they should not mix up the order of presidents, place cities in the wrong state, or ascribe customs from the 1800s to the 21st century. In the same way, if the New Testament was written by eyewitnesses of the ministry of Jesus from 1st century Judea, they should get their facts correct about the region and culture. Likewise, the broad historical facts in the Gospels should be confirmed by other historical sources. And when we look at the evidence, this is exactly what we see. We find multiple secular sources attesting to the life and ministry of Jesus, confirmation in archaeological finds, and how the New Testament perfectly coheres with ancient history. Starting with the first one, we actually have 7 sources outside of the New Testament which mention the existence of Jesus. 3 major ones go even further. Tacitus, writing around 100 AD, says that Rome suffered a great fire in 64 AD, and many blame the Emperor Nero. To get rid of the rumors, Tacitus says, "Hence to suppress the rumors, he falsely charged with the guilt, and punished with the most exquisite tortures, the persons commonly called Christians, who were hated for their enormities. Christus, the founder of the name, was put to death by Pontius Pilate, procurator of Judea, in the reign of Tiberius." As you can see, Tacitus is a hostile witness, which means his testimony meets the criteria of embarrassment, and he confirms what the New Testament says, that Jesus existed, that he was put to death, and by Pontius Pilate, was ruling in Judea under Emperor Tiberius. So Tacitus attests to 5 facts that align with the accounts in the New Testament. Another historian by the name of Josephus says of Christ, "Now there was about this time Jesus, a wise man, if it be lawful to call him a man, for he was a doer of wonderful works, a teacher of such men as receive the truth with pleasure. He drew over to him both many of the Jews and many of the Gentiles. He was the Christ. And when Pilate, at the suggestion of the principal men among us, had condemned him to the cross, those that loved him at the first did not forsake him, for he appeared to them alive, again the 3rd day, as the divine prophets had foretold, these and 10,000 other wonderful things concerning him. And the tribe of Christians so named for him are not extinct at this day." Now the odd thing about this passage is Josephus was a Jew, not a Christian, yet he says Jesus was the Christ and confirms the resurrection. Because of this, scholars agree this passage has been interpolated, which means a later Christian scribe doctored it. However, that doesn't mean the entire passage is a fraud, and in fact most scholars think it is original and just slightly doctored. And fortunately we have textual evidence to confirm this. In 1971, an Arabic version of this passage from Josephus was found, and it reads like this. "At this time there was a wise man, who was called Jesus, and his conduct was good, and he was known to be virtuous, and many people from among the Jews and the other nations became his disciples. Pilate condemned him to be crucified and to die, and those who had become his disciples did not abandon his discipleship. They reported that he had appeared to them after his crucifixion, and that he was alive. Accordingly, he was perhaps the Messiah, concerning whom the prophets had recounted wonders." So as I said, most scholars accept this passage was interpolated, and was originally more like what is found in the Arabic manuscript. Josephus also confirms in other sections that the brother of Jesus was James, and that John the Baptist was beheaded by Herod Antipas. Therefore, Josephus confirms New Testament facts that Jesus existed, he was a good and moral teacher, that many people followed him, he was put to death by Pilate by crucifixion. After his death, his disciples believe he appeared to them. They continued to preach his message. James was his brother. John the Baptist existed and was put to death by Herod Antipas. The Babylonian Talmud says, "On the eve of Passover they hanged Yeshua, and then announced went out in front of him for 40 days, saying, "He is going to be stoned because he practiced sorcery and enticed and led Israel astray. Anyone who knows anything in his favor, let him come and plead in his behalf." But not having found anything in his favor, they hanged him on the eve of Passover. The Talmud confirms the Jews wanted to stone Jesus, that he was crucified around Passover, and that he led many Jews away from the religious authorities. There is also an implication a trial happened, and the Talmud confirms Jesus was believed to be a miracle worker by accusing him of sorcery. This meets the criteria of embarrassment, since they have to admit it was believed Jesus had some supernatural power, but accuse it of coming from an evil source. This is why most historians accept Jesus was believed to be a miracle worker. As Graham Twelftree says, there is now almost unanimous agreement among Jesus questers that the historical Jesus performed mighty works. Even the Jesus Seminar lists among their basic facts about Jesus that he was a charismatic healer and exorcist. Thus we have several facts from these three sources, which confirm the broad historical facts of the New Testament. Finally, there is evidence in a citation from Africanus that the historians Pelagian and Thallus mention the period of darkness that happened around the time of Christ's death. He says, Thallus, in the third book of his Histories, explains away the darkness as an eclipse of the sun unreasonably. Pelagian appears to have said, during the time of Tiberius Caesar, an eclipse of the sun occurred during the full moon. Therefore, we have extra-biblical sources for the period of darkness in the New Testament. And also, we have a large amount of facts in the New Testament confirmed by other sources. The second section of external evidence comes from archaeological finds. The majority of what we find in archaeology confirms the biblical account, backing up the claim the New Testament is reliable.
But by and large, 85 to 90% of the discoveries being made in any land of the biblical world today almost immediately agrees with the biblical record. You can quarrel over the 10 or 15% if you want, but most of the archaeological discoveries affirm the biblical record.
There is so much data it would be impossible to go over it all. However, there are important finds we should mention. In the 1800s, several skeptics doubted the existence of Pilate, but in 1961 an inscription was found in Caesarea, which reads, "To Tiberius Pontius Pilate, prefect of Judea," confirming the historical existence of Pilate, and that he was ruling in Judea under Tiberius, as Luke records. Skeptics also used to say Luke hadn't a clue what he was talking about, because he records Licinius was the tetrarch of Abilene under Tiberius. But we know from history Licinius lived earlier than that as tetrarch of Clausus. However, an inscription discovered at Albia, dating to the time of Tiberius, names Licinius as tetrarch, just as Luke had written. There were in fact two government officials named Licinius, and Luke was correct all along. In fact, we discovered archaeological evidence for many of the rulers Luke mentions, like Herod the Great, Herod Antipas, Gallio the proconsul of Achaia from Acts 18. Many figures mentioned in the New Testament have been discovered in archaeology, such as Erastus, the treasurer at Corinth, mentioned in Paul's letter to the Romans. In 1941, more ossuaries were discovered, one bearing the name Alexandros, son of Simon, and the ossuaries may contain a misspelling of Cyrenian. If so, this would be another historical figure mentioned in the New Testament. Even closer to Jesus, in Hierapolis, archaeologists believe they have found the lost tomb of Philip the Apostle. However, a major discovery came recently, when the family tomb of Caiaphas was discovered, confirming his existence as well. We also have discovered archaeological evidence of Bethlehem and Nazareth, despite them being small towns, as well as Capernaum. Also in Capernaum, we found evidence of a magnificent synagogue and a Roman presence, just as the New Testament testifies. In Jerusalem, we have found archaeological evidence for the remains of a pool of Bethesda and a pool of Siloam. We've also found a Galilean fishing boat, which perfectly fits the description in the New Testament. Again, there's so much to go over, it would be impossible to mention it all here, but I want to mention three more important discoveries. Recently it was reported that we found the likely place of Jesus' trial in Jerusalem's Old City. Shimon Gibson says, "There is of course no inscription stating it happened here, but everything, archaeological, historical, and gospel accounts, all fall into place, and it makes sense." Even more important, excavations in Judea reveal that an earthquake happened around the time of Jesus' crucifixion. It was reported, researching the deeper layers of the soil, 2 earthquakes were detected by looking at the layers of built-up sediment, called varves, which build up each year. A widespread earthquake is known to have happened in 31 BC, and another one was detected, which must have occurred between 26 and 36 AD. They registered at a 6.3 magnitude, and that would have been capable of causing the structural damage to tombs, rocks, and the temple as recorded in the Gospels. This coheres with the biblical account that an earthquake happened at this time. The final piece of evidence may be our first archaeological discovery which mentions the existence of Jesus. In 2002, an ossuary was discovered with the inscription, "James, son of Joseph, brother of Jesus." Dr. André Lumière evaluated the ossuary and stated the cursive Aramaic script is consistent with 1st century lettering, and it was not made with modern tools. The odds of an ossuary mentioning a brother is very unlikely, unless that brother was a famous person. And the Biblical Archaeology Review also looked at the plausibility and said from this time period there would be 1.71 people named James with a brother named Jesus and a father named Joseph, making it extremely likely that if it is authentic, it would belong to St. James of Jerusalem. However, in 2003, Israeli Antiquities Authority published its report that the ossuary was authentic, but the inscription was a modern forgery. But the problem is their report left many holes. Professor Wolfgang Krumbein analyzed the ossuary and concluded their paper originates from a series of errors, bias, mistaken premises, use of inappropriate methodology, mistaken geochemistry, defective error control, reliance on unconfirmed data, and a disregard of information. And other later studies concluded the inscription was authentic, including a 2014 study which found the microfossils in the inscription were naturally deposited. New Testament scholar Ben Witherington remarked, "As seems probable, the ossuary found in the vicinity of Jerusalem, and dated to about AD 63, is indeed the burial box of James, the brother of Jesus. The inscription is the most important extra-biblical evidence of its kind. Thus, as the evidence indicates, we have the authentic ossuary of James, the brother of Jesus, and this means we have an archaeological inscription which bears the name of Jesus from the 1st century. Thus, the external evidence in archaeology strongly supports the biblical account and its reliability." The final section of external evidence is to look at how well the New Testament coheres and fits with the rest of ancient history. When this evidence piles up, it easily refutes the claim the New Testament was written by later forgers, and demonstrates that gospel writers were intimately familiar with the culture they were writing about. For example, in Matthew 17, Jesus is approached by Peter to pay a temple tax of 2 drachma. Jesus teaches him a lesson and tells him where he can find the amount for himself and Jesus to pay the tax. Peter goes to the sea and finds a shekel, which in ancient Rome was equal to 4 drachma. Thus Matthew records the appropriate currency exchange, that 1 shekel is equal to 4 drachma. Now why is this important? Because it's an example they knew what they were talking about. If I told you to tell me the proper currency exchange in Mexico 80 years ago, could you do it? And remember, you must do it without modern technology, like the internet or extensive libraries. The odds are very slim. In the same way, when the gospel writers get details like this, it matters. Because if they were written by later forgers, after the destruction of the temple in 70 AD, which dramatically changed the culture, they would make numerous errors and demonstrate they were not part of that culture, but later frauds. A good example is Philostratus' Life of Apollonius. Philostratus, writing around 200 AD, attempts to make up the life of a sage from the 1st century, and utterly fails. Scholars recognize dozens of errors which show the mark of a later forger, such as having Apollonius talk with kings in Babylon, yet in the 1st century Babylon was still in ruins. His trip to India is completely incompatible with known facts. Most scholars recognize that Apollonius is a made-up pagan sage based on Jesus, and is meant to give the pagans their own miracle worker. So if the Gospels were written by later forgers, it would be easy for them to mix up facts and show they were not organically part of 1st century Palestine and Greece, like how Philostratus wasn't. However, we find over and over again that the New Testament writers get facts correct constantly, demonstrating they were intimately familiar with the culture of that time. To show how much they got right, Nathaniel Lardner wrote Credibility of the Gospel History, which documents detail after detail of what the New Testament authors got right. However, it's 17 volumes long, so the amount of details they got right is unprecedented. That doesn't happen if you're a later forger, like the tale of Apollonius demonstrates. And writing about 1st century Judea is no cakewalk. Just look at how the governance changed. First, Herod the Great ruled a united kingdom, but then his kingdom is divided between 3 sons. Archelaus is never certified as king, but is allowed to reign. Then Archelaus is removed, and Judea is reduced to a Roman province, run by prefects. But the religious leaders are still allowed some role in military power. However, in 36 AD, Pilate is removed, and replaced with others, which lasts until Herod Agrippa is given kingship of the region. He lasts a few years and then dies, and is replaced by a system of procurators. However, Herod Agrippa II later is given some power in Judea, but it is limited. The whole issue is very confusing, and has befuddled even some Roman historians. However, the Gospel writers tiptoe easily through this political mess, where it is easy to make a mistake and show you have no clue what you're talking about. Yet they constantly get the changes in government correct, even up to the point of saying Archelaus was not a king, but only reigning as one. A later forger would have likely messed this up. Another good point is the issue of crucifixion and burial. The depiction of Jesus' crucifixion correlates to known facts about it, such as carrying one's cross and being nailed to it. Many skeptics used to think the Gospels were wrong in their depiction of someone being nailed to a cross. However, in 1968, an ossuary was found containing the burial remains of a Jewish man named Yohanan, containing a 7-inch nail driven through both his feet. His legs were also crushed, confirming the practice of breaking the victim's legs. Skeptics like Dale Martin have tried to argue Jesus wouldn't have been allowed to be given a proper burial. However, the fact that Yohanan was given one challenges this claim. Josephus also tells us that prior to 70 AD, crucified victims were allowed to be given a proper burial. Thus, the biblical description of crucifixion and burial fits well with what the historical record tells us. In the book Jesus and the Eyewitnesses, Richard Bauckham compares the amount of names used in the Gospels with that of what we found on ancient Palestinian gravestones, ancient records, and on ossuaries. He finds the ratio of names in the Gospels correlates almost perfectly to the ratio of names the rest of the historical record reveals. In both cases, Simon and Joseph are the most popular male names. The other 9 most popular male names correlate as well. The 2 most popular female names, Mary and Salome, and the other 9 most popular female names correlate almost as close as well. Thus it seems remarkable if the Gospels were written by later forgers, they coincidentally got the use of name percentages right as well. It fits far better with the fact that they were actually writing about events in a culture they were eyewitnesses to. Otherwise, these facts would not be piling up one after another. This can be seen in what Colin Hemmer does. He lists 84 facts the book of Acts gets right in its final 16 chapters. And when you look at the facts it gets right, it shows Luke was very familiar with the culture and knows what he was talking about. Luke gets the proper names of ports, local industries of certain regions, the proper lines of boundaries, slang terminology, specific landmarks, local variations in languages, and the proper titles for regional and local officials. For example, he knows the governor of Cyprus is called a proconsul, while in Philippi they are referred to as governors. Meanwhile in Thessalonica they are referred to as politarchs or rulers. In Ephesus, the chief magistrate is called the town clerk. The ruler in Malta is called the chief man. In Athens, Areopagites is a title for a member of their court, and so on and so on. You do not get this kind of accuracy unless you are very familiar with what actually took place, and you do not get that unless you are or work directly for the eyewitnesses of the events. Craig Bloomberg does the same with the book of John and lists 59 facts John gets right about ancient Judea. And there is still Lardner's 17-volume work waiting for you if you want to see the overwhelming amount of facts they get right, which is way too much to list here. However, my research partner was nice enough to pull the 41 facts William Paley lists in his book, which is the cliff notes on Lardner's work, and we place them in a blog post below so you can go through them and see the overwhelming amount of facts they get right. All of this just piles up to show the New Testament writers knew what they were talking about, and over again they got their facts right, affirming the reliability of the New Testament. The external facts and archaeological discoveries constantly confirm the biblical account in almost every way. The evidence once again affirms the New Testament is a reliable document.
try to be somebody, but I just know it's crazy, but I'm tearing it all up. What am I gonna be doing? I know it's crazy, I know they don't know this, people assuming, but all this tears up assuming that's what it was really like. I got a lot of things rolling, but I just know that the path that people don't even want to be laying down, you know. People will be struggling now. I'm a straight up Republican hope. Yo, 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 it's John Cena. You can't see me. No, it's a joke. It's a joke. I say that every time. Not for real. Man, it's bad in here. Connection interrupted. Is your connection interrupted too? Or is it just mine? Connection interrupted. I'm trying to shoot you. What the hell? You go to hardcore, man. This sucks.
probably pro-choice. Oh, it's funny. Elon Musk just replied to Hillary Clinton that there may be more than Paul Pelosi's story that meets the eye with an article with these facts. She didn't mention it.
you to hell should have believed in Jesus.